Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
You make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UPNradio.com.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. We'd like to welcome you to our show. We're Del and Debi, Mind, Body, Soul. We are invigorating talk that has everything to do with your health and well-being. We welcome you today. We have a great show. And before we get started, I'd like to tell you a few things and introduce myself before I introduce my beautiful co-host. I am Del. I am not Del. I am.
You could be me for the day.
Am not Del. I am Debbie Carlin Boyle.
Let's
and
switch.
I am certified as an integrative nutrition, health, and wellness coach, and I'm also a certified personal trainer and fitness instructor. And I help my clients and people find balance in their life with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. And, well, let me go ahead and introduce my co-host here, and then we'll talk about how you can get involved with us,
absolutely. Hi, I'm Debbie. I mean, Del. And
Funny.
I'm a certified transformational coach and a 3 principles practitioner and teacher. And I help my clients to achieve a healthy psychological being so that they can so they can experience a more inspired, peaceful, and joy-filled life, regardless of their external circumstances. So, as Debbie was about to say, we are an interactive show.
Yes.
So we're going to share the call-in number.
It's 323-284-7826. Yes. So call in, become part of this conversation. This is a really interesting conversation today, and we're just about to introduce our guests. So you could also go to our Facebook page, and you can make a comment, or you can ask a question. Del and Debbie, Mind, Body, Soul. We keep it up during the show, so we glance down, and if we can refer to it during the show, we will get back to you. Otherwise, we will get back to you post-show. So, having said that, without further ado...
Yes, I'd like to introduce our guest today. So we are very excited to welcome back 2 incredible women who know firsthand all about the healing power of horses and the life-changing effects of equine therapy. We'd like to welcome Kate Neligan, who is a certified equine-assisted life and career coach. Her specialty is working with corporate groups and individuals in equine coaching. Kate holds a master's degree in spiritual psychology from the University of USM, which we both attended. And she's also the author of 2 best-selling books, Women Will Save the World and The Power of Being a Woman. In addition, we'd like to welcome Lisa Brisse, who is an exercise physiologist, wellness coach, and owner and founder of State of the Heart Fitness. She's also the author of The Man in Our Mirror, a reflection of our collective soul. Unfortunately, since they were last on our show, they both lost their horses, Little Miss and Lindsay, respectively. So in addition to sharing about all the incredible power of equine therapy, they're also here to discuss what it's like to actually deal with losing and the grief involved in losing a beloved companion who is not only, your companion, best friend, but working partner too. So welcome, Kate and Lisa, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on your very busy schedule, I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, you guys. Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So,
It's nice to be back.
Yeah, I know. Sorry of your loss. I know
Yeah.
it's, 36 years, I think you said that.
Miss.
36 years. And how long did you have your companion?
I had Lindsay for just a year and a half, but she was in my life for 4 or 5 years before that, and it felt like lifetimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. It's nothing to do with time, is it? It's just
The
the
connection.
relationship.
So we should, for our audience who may have missed the first show,
Yeah.
and which was such a great show about equine therapy and what having the horses in your life have meant to you and others as well. Maybe we could give a quick little background on how you got into doing what you do and how the horses, your companions, came into your life, and then we'll go on from there, if that's okay. Anybody want to start? Kate?
Sure. I actually found equine therapy very accidentally. I'll never forget the moment when I heard about it, and it was at a ranch in Malibu. And I heard that the horses were very intentionally working with people to help them transform, and these were addicts at the time. And I sat in and I became addicted myself, and it was a year to 2 years of being basically an apprentice with a mentor and watching addicts come in very distraught and leaving very connected again. And so then I decided this is something I really wanted to be doing with my master's in spiritual psychology and my gifts, and pairing them with horses, because I've loved horses since I was a kid.
That was my question.
Just going to say, yes.
So did you grow up with horses?
I did. Yeah, I've been riding since I was 10. I never had a horse until Lindsay. That's why that was so hard. But yes, they've been in my life, except for like a brief stint in my 20s. They were always around, but I had no idea that they could actually do this healing and coaching work with humans until I started to see it. So and then that's just what I wanted for myself and for others.
And how long ago was that?
I've been coaching with horses for about 5 years now.
For 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 2 years before that when you first sat in, you said, yes?
Yeah, and so, I had a first horse that I was very connected to who passed, and actually was across the street from where Little Miss lived, which is an interesting coincidence.
That's a
story.
Yeah, because that's up in Los Olivos, which
Yes.
is not like around the corner from here.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that horse was named Felici, and it was through her human that I got introduced to actually equine therapy, and then Lindsay was really my partner in equine coaching. So, and she's very, very, very talented.
I love the way you say her human instead of
owner.
Yes, exactly. I love that.
We can't really. They own us, don't they?
I'm just about to say that. That's very, very
I
cool.
love that.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that expression before. And where are you from? Where did you grow up, Kate?
I grew up on the East Coast, and my mom, God bless her, would every week take me to riding lessons about an hour away in New Jersey. Yeah, and so it's just been this huge love of mine.
What came first, the horse or the lesson? Like, did you have the passion and ask your mom for the lessons, or did the lesson get you?
I think I've loved animals
addicted,
since like the day I arrived here, and I at times love them more than humans.
Yeah.
But
Understood.
Equine coaching has
my
changed
dog
that.
is running around here right now.
Yeah, and so yes, I think it was because my mom was interested in equine, in riding that she introduced me to it, and then
Oh, that's wonderful.
fabulous.
Yeah.
I haven't stopped and never will.
So
and Lisa.
Yes. So give us a little bit of background of how your relationship first started with these magnificent animals.
Well, I was 5 and growing up in central Minnesota. We lived out in the country, and our neighbors, the farm family down the road, had this little pony named Brandy that I had never ridden a horse before, and they had brought her over and asked if I wanted to go for a ride, and of course, yes. And I sat, she was a little Welsh pony, black with a white spot on her nose and a star on her forehead, and I remember sitting in front of they had 10 kids in their family, and so this was one of the daughters who was a little older than me, and I sat in front of her, and we went running through the field, and I remember just crying. I was so scared, but as soon as we stopped, I'm like, let's do it again. I mean, literally after that ride, I think I drove my parents crazy because her name was Brandy, and I think all I said constantly was, oh, I wish I had Brandy. Oh, I wish I had Brandy. Oh, I wish I had Brandy. And I always wanted to go to the neighbors. And anyway, in Christmas of that year, I think my parents were like, oh, my gosh, what are we going to do with this child? She's going to drive us crazy. And I remember Christmas Eve that year. It was 1974. I was 5. And my mom said, there's a gift that's coming, but we're just waiting for a knock on the door. And I had no idea. Anyway, got the knock, and I ran over there to the door, and it was one of the neighbor kids with Brandy, and he said, Merry Christmas, she's yours. And so that began this lifelong journey. And after Brandy, then there was Tessie, and I was 8 years old, and so Brandy and Tessie were together. And then when I was 13, I was like, I'm ready for a big horse, a coming of age. And so I was on a quest. It was around that time in the late 70s, the Black Stallion, the movie, and I had read all the books by Walter Farley. And so I was like on a mission to find the Black Stallion or to have that kind of a relationship. And I started looking through the ads in the paper, and this ad caught my eye, and I have no idea why, because it wasn't at all what I was
Your image
envisioning.
of what you were...
No.
Yeah.
The ad basically read, yearling filly, malnourished, needs a home. Was rescued from being, she was in a pasture. She was thrown in a pasture. Her mother died when she was 3 months old, and somehow she survived a Minnesota winter, pawing through the snow and
By herself?
By herself.
Oh, my gosh.
And this woman had found her in
knew
the
that.
spring and rescued her to find her a home, and we were the home. And I mean, she just was like skin and bones, and you could pull her hair out, in clumps, and her hooves were split. And I mean, she just was not the pretty picture
Yes.
of what you were looking
Yes.
for, but there was just something in her eye that I was just like, I think she's the one.
Yeah.
But my mom and dad were like, well, but you wanted a horse to ride, and she's, we first have to nurse her back to health, and there's risks with that. There's no guarantees. And I'm like, yeah, but
You
I
were
still have
willing to
Brandy.
take
Yeah.
Oh.
And I mean,
And you were only 13 at the time?
I was 13. And who would have ever imagined that she lived for 35 more
Yeah.
years?
And that, I mean, that is incredible too, because I mean, that's like a family member, because there's no, I mean, you're such an impressionable age at 13 anyway, and that bonding, and then to have it all the way through your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Up to this point.
Unbelievable.
Yes. I mean, she literally, not just spiritually, but physically carried me through my life from the age,
She did.
when, after.
All the coming of age stuff, all the growing up, becoming an adult, all your experiences and relationships.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, like, she saw me
Yeah.
through everything, graduating from high school,
Right.
I went
all the
through
milestones.
all the milestones, college, moving to California.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah.
That. So when and why did you move here? We talked about it on the first show, but just an update.
Well, just, after high school, I was very socially involved and in sports and everything. And we lived on this beautiful piece of property in Minnesota right on the lake. And, I had my horses. And when I graduated high school, I just wasn't ready to go. I wanted to go to college, but I wasn't ready to leave home. And so I commuted to a local university, St. Cloud State University in central Minnesota. And I was there for 2 years. But I went into this dark, deep depression that was not me. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. Like, here I was, I had my horses, the lake, my family, my cousins, my friends. Well, a lot of my friends had gone to college, but, and I just went into this dark place. I cried every night. My mom would just hug me and hold me, and she, and at the age of 20, I just realized I had to move to California. And I had been there when I was 16, and I could not get it out of my head and my heart. And so I finally made the decision, July of 1989, that I had to make the biggest risk of my life. And I packed up my car and took out a $2,000 loan and moved to California with a dream. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job. My intention was I'd find a place to live, and then I'd work for a year and then go to find a college. And I went to Pepperdine University.
But
Anyway,
you left Miss. You
I
knew you
left-
were leaving Miss behind.
I was
and
leaving
you were willing
her
to do
behind.
that.
I
Yeah.
was willing, but my intention was I was somehow going to find a place for her. And everybody thought, you're crazy. Like, it's one thing to bring yourself out to a place, but you think you're going to find a place for your horse? Like, why don't you just sell her and buy another one? And it was like, oh my gosh, you don't just
You
buy
don't
and sell
get it.
friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah, no. That's
A lot
like
of
telling you
people
to
do,
sell your
though.
dog.
They
In
do.
this world, a lot of people
Yeah.
do.
It's true.
Yeah.
But that's
It's
like
true.
you're saying that about your dog. You know, leave your dog. You can get a new one when you land.
No.
They're family.
Yeah,
To
there
people
is a
like us,
connection.
they're family.
Their family. I mean, there was just no way, I could have done that. And so I just came out here with faith, like, okay, I was a believer in miracles, and I was reading all these books of, Miracles by Stuart Wilde and You Can Have It All by Arnold Patent. So I was like, okay, the universe says it'll support me if I just believe in it. And I mean, within 3 months of being here, I was working at a horse farm as a show groom
Fabulous.
up in the San Ynez Valley. I was flying back home for Christmas and flying from Santa Barbara to San Francisco to Minneapolis. And on the flight to San Francisco, I sat by this lovely couple who just happened to have moved to the San Ynez Valley from Santa Barbara. They had just bought this piece of property in the San Ynez Valley. They just bought 2 horses, but they weren't really horse people, but they wanted to be. And so, long story short, they invited me over for
Yeah.
invited
Absolutely.
me
That's
over
the
for
universe
dinner.
working.
Yes, and I helped them with their horses, and one thing led to another, and I said that I had a horse back in Minnesota, and I hope to bring her out one day. And they said, well, what's keeping you? And I said, well, I just have to find a place to keep her. And they were like, well, did you see the size of our 5-acre pasture? We'll take her.
Oh,
and they
so
said,
sweet.
you can bring her here and keep her here for free, and you just pay for her food. And I mean, I just looked at them like, you gotta be kidding
really.
me.
It's like, this is a gift.
So-
this came down from
Yeah,
a bigger source. Yeah.
her angels, and she ended up living on that property for the remaining 28 years of her
Wow, the
life.
whole time.
And I know Lisa and I are friends. I actually work for State of the Heart Fitness, and which, thank you very much, I love doing. And Lisa, when was going up and seeing Miss every weekend, you would drive from L.A., because your business is here in Los Angeles, and you would go in. For people that are listening that don't live here in the L.A. area, this is a good 3.5, could be longer drive.
It's actually
Depends.
more 2.5. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes 3, depending
Yeah,
on traffic.
depending on traffic and
Yeah.
stuff.
But
So
yeah, especially in her older years, when she started approaching 30, most horses late 20s, early 30s, I was like, I have to be there every weekend as much as I can, because time is of the essence. And I was always a little bit torn of her being there, and I was here, my work was here, but I was told through an animal communicator that she actually is good.
understood.
She's
Yeah.
good. She likes she likes her week to herself.
absence makes the heart grow
Yes.
fonder, and you
Yeah.
come back and there's a lot of appreciation.
Yeah.
I know obviously you have your company and everything. Did you ever think of incorporating sort of any sort of equine thing into your health and fitness?
Well, that's interesting because literally a couple of months before she left, went to the other side, I started pondering it, and it was probably because of our conversation on your show. Like, I'm thinking, God, Miss would be amazing at that.
Yeah.
I mean, because she already was doing that. Everybody who knew her and would come visit
She
her
had those
animals,
qualities, yeah.
she just held this healing space that was just so loving. And man, that little mirror that she would hold up in such a loving, gentle way that would allow you to, it was just like she said, let me just show you some things, and she created that space that allowed that. So I feel like she was kind of already doing that unofficially for her whole entire life.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it was just like, oh, that would be great.
thought.
And then, I
So
guess she
let's-
had other plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the passing
Yes.
of Lindsay and Miss, and what. Do you want to keep going, Lisa, and talk about, or you want to throw it to Kate?
Let's have Katie share
Yeah.
hers.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Lindsay passed, was it a month?
A month.
Before Little Miss.
Wow.
Which is also,
Had
I
they
think,
ever met?
incredible. Never
No.
met.
No.
Yeah.
so never.
No, but there was that connection with the horse I had was riding previously that had met Little Miss. So
Yeah.
the whole thing is just fascinating.
Small world.
Let's share that real quickly because
Yeah.
it was so magical when we met for this show. This is the first time we had met.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
wanted to put you two together. You had
Yeah.
reached out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You found us somehow on our.
We're all USM grads.
Yeah. Yes. And then I said, well, but you have to meet Lisa because I knew what Miss meant to you, and so. and that's when you met. So go on with your story. So we brought you together.
Yeah, so here we were meeting each other for the first time, and we got to talking about Lindsay and Miss before we got on the show, and she was saying, I said, Miss is 30, going to be 36, and she's like, wow. She said, my horse Felici had crossed over, and anyway, that she brings you signs and all of that. Well, she sends me a video after the show of Felici, and it was kind of the introduction video that you had received, and I'm watching this video in my apartment, and I'm going, oh, she's so beautiful, and I'm thinking,
I know her.
wait, why does the background landscape look very, very familiar? And then I'm thinking, this looks like Long Canyon Road where Miss is, and then I see Mrs. Pasture in the background. Like Felici literally
Was the next door neighbor?
lived right across the road in the San Ynez Valley. And I remember seeing her, the
Just
woman working.
serendipitous, isn't it? Amazing.
I called Katie. I'm like, you're not going to believe it, but Felici was right across the road. So it was just that connection. Anyway,
Meant to be. Meant to be.
It is. And it's amazing. I think, these horses to me are so magical that, there's so many connections. I remember I was on vacation once and I felt like Little Miss was sending me signs for Lisa, too. All these unicorn signs. It's funny. I just realized I'm wearing a unicorn today. A unicorn is one of Little Miss's signs for you, isn't it?
Yeah, yes.
But you were asking before about the passing.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Now,
how-
how old was Lindsay?
So Lindsay was about 20. She was an off-the-track thoroughbred, most likely a brood mare. So she had many babies and was not rideable. So, I rescued her with the help of many incredible people who helped fund that. And she was going to be euthanized if I didn't rescue her.
And
out
how
of
long ago was
Malibu.
this? 5?
So Lindsay died April 2017.
Okay.
So it's been over a year. And when I rescued her, it was about a year and a half prior to that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but she was the one showing up. So the funny story about the synchronicities is that after Felici died, who was really like my first soul horse, the synchronicities are incredible. There was a horse in the pasture right next to Felici that passed in the next day or two afterwards. So there was this opening in that pasture. There was a gelding in there who always needed to have a mare. And there are certain geldings, like I think with humans, where they have to have a girlfriend at all times. And so they brought
humans like that.
they brought up this mare that looked a lot like this other horse, Dublin, and it was Lindsay. And everyone was telling me, you have to come back to the ranch really fast after, she passed. She had died of melanoma, which 80% of gray horses get.
Oh, interesting.
Little Miss was gray also. She never had melanoma.
She
though.
didn't.
Oh, man, so lucky. That's probably why she
was in
lasted
the
as long as she
20%.
did.
Yes.
Yeah, because Felici was only, I think, 18 when she passed. Is way too young. Incredible Arabian. But what happened was I went back to the ranch 5 days later after Felici passed, and all of the horses came to greet me. And there's this one thoroughbred sticking her head out, and I'm like, who is that horse? I haven't seen her before. And she was just making the funniest faces at me, and it was the first time I laughed in like 5 days because I was in my grief. And then I was drawn to this horse, and I just kept visiting her. And I think my first major experience with her was I started to get really sick when I was up at the ranch in Malibu that day, and I felt like I was getting the flu, and I didn't think I was gonna be able to drive home. I mean, it just like came over me. And I sat down on a tree, and I just tried to, sit in the dirt and try to get better. And she came over to me. She was living in that pasture, and she put her head down, and she literally just worked with me energetically, and then all of these horrible symptoms, like the flu symptoms, left my body very, very quickly. She sat down right next to me and rolled, which I also was like, oh my gosh. And at that time a horse had never sat next to me. Lindsay's sat on me since then, but it was quite miraculous. And I got up and I felt great, and I was able to drive home, and I was like, what just happened? Can
healed you.
horses
They're
actually
healers.
Right, correct. And so hence began, our deep relationship. I brought her into all the sessions, and then of course I wanted to rescue her. A lot of people were attached to her and wanted to help me rescue her. And then we moved to a couple different ranches in Los Angeles before she broke her leg. Out of nowhere.
Wow.
And it was pretty shocking. And I remember when the vet was looking at the X-rays, I kept saying, "Are you sure they're hers? Are you sure they're hers?" Like I just couldn't believe it. And I had to, from finding out that, you know, there may be an issue because they had to go get the X-ray machine, to literally the truck that comes to pick up her body. It was about an hour and a half. So my system was in a lot of shock.
Right.
And I wish I had more time to say goodbye, but you know, I'm very grateful I got to stay there with her while that happened.
So you don't know how she broke her leg?
Yeah. Did anybody shed some light on that for you?
I've had dreams about it, so I get the sense that she was in a pasture that day with a mare who she was very close to, and I thought they would be fine, but they were supposed to take the other mare out when the food came, and I have a feeling that may not have happened. She got up onto a platform, the other mare was protective of her food, and she stepped backwards off the platform, and I think that may have happened. Yeah. But I've also think she had an old injury, and you know, it's hard to know, but it's one of those things where you know that's when you know you're there's no other choice really at that point.
I was just going to say, I mean, I hear this a lot. So when a horse breaks its leg, there's just no.
It would have meant a $20,000 surgery, and it would have meant a year stall rest, and then after that, she would probably always have laminitis, and she already had other physical issues, and I was not going to make her stand in a stall for a year when her purpose in life was to work with humans and be with them, and she always was curious and wanted something to do, and I wasn't going to do that to her. Even if I could have raised the money for it, it wasn't the right choice.
Yeah, I always say it's definitely quality versus quantity. I mean, you know, a good short life is so much better than a long life of no real quality.
But it's fascinating is the serendipity is amazing because literally in that short period of time, she had a caretaker from another ranch who she was very close to, and they were very bonded. Her name was Nance, and she happened to be walking down the street as this was happening, as the vet was there. And I said, "You have to come in." And I was having a hard time making the decision about, should I do this? Should I wait? I knew she was in pain though, and I needed to get clear. And then all of a sudden, I literally could hear Lindsay say, "Let me go, it's time." And I immediately got emotional, so I knew the information was real. And then I walked to the bathroom and I said, "I need to know," and I just got clarity that I had to do it. But it's hard. I know I've worked with a lot of people in grief, and they're always like, did I wait too long? Did I do too soon? And you know, we just have to move on.
Right.
We can't analyze it too much.
If you do,
you
drive yourself, it makes it worse.
You did the best you could with the
can't.
information in that moment, and you can never second guess that.
Yeah.
Wow,
So,
I'm sorry. That's a tough,
Yeah, that's
very,
very
tough.
tough.
I didn't know these details,
Yeah.
and that's very tough. Yeah. And Lisa,
Yes,
how did it
yours
all?
was-
Yeah. Well, looking back, you know, hindsight is always 20/20. I have more insight into how Miss chose to leave this world, and I have to say that I always wondered how because I always knew she was a very evolved, conscious soul. I mean, it was from when she was about 12 and I was in my early 20s that when she first spoke to me on a ride, that I heard her, that I realized, okay, she's here to teach me. And so I was always pretty aware that she was, you know, she was guiding her life. And I knew when she was getting older that, you know, she was going to decide when it was time for her to leave the body. And I remember one time, it was probably a couple of years before, where I was taking her for a walk, and she always had to visit all the neighborhood horses, and, you know, we had to take our time. And I remember having this thought of, I wonder how long she's going to be here. And I heard her say, "I'm going to be here as long as I want to be here, and it's joyful, and you don't have to worry about that." Like
she's got it covered.
Yeah,
I got it handled.
You don't have to worry.
That's not for you to stress.
Yeah, so let's just be here now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, after the show, it was, I think, in February of 2017, about a month and a half later, she started to have some diarrhea. And, you know, the grass was green, so we were like, oh, it must be the rich, you know, grass. And, you know, we just did various things. But over the next couple of months, we couldn't stop it no matter what we tried. And it was literally, now looking back, I call it that she was literally fading away. And that she actually allowed my mom and I and those around her to have some time to adjust to her leaving, because her demeanor did not change. She was her same peaceful self, and it was it's like we could feel her saying, "What are you guys?" We're like trying to find solutions, and it was like she was like, "I'm getting ready to go," and miraculously. This is a horse who in her older years loved to lounge. I mean, she wouldn't be napping and all out. And, neighbors would walk by and be like, "Is she okay?" And then she'd look up and they're like, "Okay." She just loved to take naps.
Yeah.
And
sorry, I've got a visual here. Was she because some horses nap when they're standing up? Did she actually lay on the?
Oh yeah.
Oh, she lay down.
Full on sprawled. Yes.
Okay.
And so so she could look like she was dead.
Yes.
And so people would be nervous, but she had the whole neighborhood always keeping an eye on her.
Yeah. Which is
And but the last 8 weeks of her life, she did not lay down.
Oh.
great. Oh, interesting.
Not once.
Yeah.
And
That's telling.
I kept thinking, I was interpreting it as she knows if she lays down, she's not going to be able to get up, and but so she doesn't want to go. So I was thinking Miss has bounced back from, health stuff. And so I just thought she's the miracle horse, and she's not ready to go. And, but she just kept shedding weight every week. When I'd come back up, I'd see her and I'd be like, and oh my gosh, I can't believe. And I actually talked to the animal communicator about a month before she passed, and she said, she's ready. But I was like, I don't believe it. Like
I mean, I'm not very knowledgeable on this. What is the sort of normal or natural lifespan of a horse?
Late 20s, early 30s.
Oh, so she was
beyond her. Yes,
like over 100
The
in
expectation.
about
human
108
in the average.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. in
So,
human years. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why she lied down a lot.
Yeah, yes, exactly. She was, she earned her
needed
years.
it. Yeah.
But anyway, it was May of 2017 where it was her birthday, May 11th. It was my birthday, May 21st. And it was Memorial Day weekend where I was like 99% sure that it was time, but I wasn't totally 100%, and I wasn't going to make that choice unless. So I called somebody out who, again, another animal intuitive who had worked with her before, and I said, this was a Sunday night of Memorial Day weekend, I said, do your thing with her and let me know. And I walked away, and when she was done, I said, so, and she's like, well, she's ready. I said, okay. And she said, but she'll do whatever she'll work with you. Like if you're not ready, she'll stick around. And I looked at her and I saw how tired she was. And when she said, she's really just waiting for you. That was it. When I realized she had not laid down to wait for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, the strength of her, and the strength of her spirit to survive her first year of life in a Minnesota winter. Like, she was determined. I know that I have a big life ahead. That same strength of spirit came and showed up, and so that next morning I said, okay, so that was a Sunday evening, Memorial Day weekend, and I'm thinking, it's Memorial Day weekend. Is the vet? When can he come out? When can the person come with the backhoe to dig the hole? It was like I had to coordinate
the whole
the logistics.
It was like, as soon as I made the decision, Sunday evening, all of a sudden neighbors showed up, like were pulling up. I mean, the vet was available at 9:30 in the morning on Memorial Day weekend. The guy with the backhoe was available at 10. I mean, it was like everything was lining up. So my mom came out. All of a sudden that evening, the neighbors were just around and loving on her and hugging her. And I mean, it was just so incredible. And then this car pulls up out of nowhere in the dark. It's kind of in the dark at this point. It's about 8:30 at night. And this woman who lived down the road, I'd never met before. She introduces herself. She was probably in her late 60s, and she said, I'm a Buddhist priest, and I've been observing and feeling that this was coming. And she said, I would be honored to do a ceremony for her.
Oh, beautiful.
And she was available on Monday morning. At that time, she showed up with rose petals and friends.
That's where I saw that ceremony because you documented it.
Yes.
But I had no idea that this woman just drove up in this.
Just out of nowhere,
Wow.
literally dropped out of the sky.
Yeah.
And my friends from LA came up. There were 15 of us that were there, including Josh, her companion, to escort her across. And it was the most beautiful. Our vet was
Ceremonious.
like, in all the years I've been doing this, I have never seen anything like this. And Josh, her companion, really let us know when she found her wings. He was, I have a video of those two touching noses. They were saying goodbye.
Oh.
Yeah, it was. And we did the 3 shots. The first shot would relax
Yes,
her.
yeah.
The second shot would help her lay down. And then the third shot was to let her go. And the third shot, he said, she'll take probably 3 breaths and that will be it. And Josh was right there and he was so attentive. And all of a sudden she breathed and he instantly looked up on the hill and we all looked up on the hill like, what is he looking at? There's nothing up there. And all of a sudden he wanted to run. He was whinnying and we let him go and he just ran across the pasture and he whinnied and it was like he was announcing to the neighborhood, she got her wings, she got her wings. And
her spirit.
yeah. So it was a very
Wow.
intense leaving.
Yes. I know it was very tough for you.
Yeah.
I know.
It was. It was.
But you know what, I can't.
I can talk without
I know,
bawling.
and I don't
Yes.
want to make it worse. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
anyway.
But what is coming up for me as I'm listening to this, as you both share that you basically were given the opportunity to make this choice at the end of when it was the right time and what was the best thing to do. And what comes up for me is how we can do this for our animal companions, but we don't
know.
do it for humans.
Well, because that's echinacea.
no,
Not
no,
echinacea.
Euthanasia. Yeah.
Yes.
Euthanasia, and
But
it's
it's-
illegal.
I know.
Exactly.
So-
I
But
don't
it just-
understand
I don't
why.
either, having just had to witness 3 family members pass under the most horrific circumstances
Right.
of being it just shocks me.
Right.
So anyway, that aside,
Yeah, because you had control over their passing.
Yeah,
It's
and-
one of the ways we're
and-
most compassionate to animals, thankfully.
yes,
right?
exactly,
Yeah.
absolutely. We don't make them
Yeah.
when it's inevitable and there's suffering and it's just anyway. So
Well, and the thing is that what I learned, I was kind of hoping that Miss would just lay down and go to sleep, and that would be okay.
That's what we all want. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
But she was like,
Yeah.
We did this whole life together. It's all about love. I want to do this together too, and that is the greatest act
dictated
of
that.
love. I
Yeah.
mean, my mom was like, I don't know how you could be so strong for her at that time, and it's like, how can you not?
Well, and I also think, I take back what I just said about my family members because it was actually beautiful being with them at the end, and there's so much love.
Yes.
And there was so much beauty in it because we
Yes.
did have time to
Yes.
prepare ourselves and
Yes.
to see the beauty in it and to experience the love. So it wasn't like an accident or something that was so quick that we didn't have that. So it sounded like exactly you got to share that beauty, that love, and that celebration of life as opposed to, it is just, we talked about it earlier before we went on camera, that it is just moving from the world of the formless, rather the form into the formless, and it's just energy. The love doesn't go. The energy of that person or that companion, animal or human, doesn't go.
Are always with you.
It's always there. So it is beautiful.
And you can find my experience too. Like I never thought I could be with a horse when it was put down because I've been in ranches where that's happened, and I'm like, I have to leave. And A, I knew Lindsay didn't want me to leave, and B, I knew I had to do it. And I found reserves of strength inside of myself that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And it's what you say
There's a
when you
gift in
can run triathlons because you can, in fitness,
Yes.
like you can find extra strength. And I just found so much strength in my spirit,
Yes.
in the ability to be there. And I'm so grateful I was because
Yeah.
it was one of the and it's a moment now when I go back to, and I'm only a year and a half older, but I go back and I'm with that version of myself that went through it, and I comfort her because it's like it's intense, you
And
know.
it's a privilege. I can't. I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
I
It is.
remember when we had to put my boyfriend and his daughter's dog down, and they were too emotional, and I was with Shadow, and the same thing. Beautiful vet came to the house, the 3 injections, but again she lit candles and did this whole ceremony, and it really was so beautiful, and
on
I
their terms.
I really felt totally privileged and strong enough to help Shadow move on.
Yes.
And it was beautiful.
Well, you think about it, I think the 2 most significant moments of our life is the moment you are birthed into this world and the moment you're birthed into your heavenly world, you know? And so to be there is to be a witness and to, in this case, to help our loved ones.
Make that transition.
Make
It
that
is. I just went through it this weekend. Somebody said, what was the most profound, beautiful experiences of your life? And initially I started thinking about the day I gave birth to both my sons, on separate occasions, of course.
Yeah.
But then also the day that my mother died in my arms. It was, and it was the irony of it was both birth and death,
Yes.
but equally so profound, so beautiful.
Yes.
So it just,
Yes.
I mean, words can't even begin to describe it.
No, and and the animal communicator that I've used for years, Sue Hopple, I want to give a shout out because she's amazing.
Yes, share her name for sure.
Yeah, she is incredible, and I did a session with Miss a week after, and this woman's in Colorado, and she's never met Miss. She just has gone by a picture, and she totally saw the scene of her leaving her body, and she said, wow. She said she just leapt out and she literally ran back. She says she has her herd that she is in
Beautiful.
charge of. And she said she ran back and she described her soul companion, Mrs. Soul Companion Sultan, who had died 3 years before. She described him. She saw him. She saw one of other Mrs. Initial companion when she moved here from Minnesota, Dexter. He was a bay. He was there. And there was a white horse, and I believe it was Felici because
we think it was Felici.
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
But then she said, and did Josh whinny? And I said, yes. She said, okay, because he's showing me that he, kind of
Took off.
and he told everybody that it was time. So
Yeah.
I have a question
Yeah.
because we're all talking, we're all feeling the same. We have, I know you have Ellie and
Right there.
you're right there.
Yes.
But Kate, you mentioned something about losing a friend over this. I want to touch on that. We can all sit here and understand.
the post fallout from it, and
Yeah.
the grief and the reaction. Not only that you each have, Lisa and I have talked, but people around you and dealing with
and how
people
they dealt with
understanding
it.
and how they dealt
Yeah,
with what you were dealing with.
That was one of the biggest surprises for me and shocks was that I just assumed that people would treat me the way that we all treated my friend when she lost her dad at 18. We'd all just show up and be there and there's no one there. And it was so hard. And so there were a couple things. One, Lindsay had hundreds of clients. So there's all of that grief, which I'm fielding, which is literally people's shock and surprise and wait, that's my therapist, that's my coach, and they're attached to her. And then there's the piece of people just not being so shocked and so hurt about it. People who had never met Lindsay that were just friends with me were so distraught by it and so upset about it that no one really knew what to do or how to handle it. And luckily, one of my friends is a pet loss counselor, so I had that level of support. And the best support for me were my cats. I mean, they literally, they've through 2 horses now, will not leave my side. My one guy is my rock and the best love I could ever imagine receiving. So that was helpful. But my best friend, I saw her right after it happened and she's acting like nothing changed. And she's like, well, you're fine. And I'm like, no, I'm in shock. Like, and so it's, people don't really understand the cycles of grief, and they don't really know what to do. And so I think people are afraid. And one of the things I want to help people with is to not have that stigma around us being able to talk about these things or the difficult emotions. Like I can handle my own emotions, but I would have loved to have someone to,
So my question would be, is there some kind of ritual, some kind of memorial that you can do for your animals and your beloved companions, that especially horses that you have so long, that other people can come and sort of mourn with you?
I did do that.
Oh, you did do
I
it.
did.
That's my question.
One of the things I did that was so beautiful is we picked this space out in nature in Agora, and we did a sound bath.
Okay.
Lovely.
And I, had her tail, and we each passed it around almost like a talking stick, and we each shared a memory. And I had people there who had never met Lindsay who were there to support me. And then it was Mother's Day, and so my mom had flown out to be there. And it was beautiful. We have really beautiful photos. People felt her, saw her, knew she was there visiting. Felicia showed up too because she's like, I didn't get one, and I'm going to take this one too. So it was beautiful.
Was
and
that
I needed
helpful
to do that
for you
I think
and
it's so
for the
helpful
others?
to have
Yeah,
a ritual.
Good. Okay, that's one of my
Because
question.
we don't often have that in pet
Yeah.
loss.
Exactly.
We don't. We just kind of like move on, and we don't even
Yeah.
have days off, and we treat it very differently with humans.
That's what I was gonna
Humans,
say.
because
Totally.
we celebrate their lives.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and really, what memorials and rituals like that are for us, the ones that are living, to understand, to talk among us about all the accomplishments and the things that these living creatures have given us throughout the years, and or even for the short time that we knew them. And we need that. So it's not closure; it's just an addition to. It sort of just seals
Yeah.
the fact
Well, it
that
is.
their
It's like you
physical
said,
self has passed.
It's a
That's all.
celebration of
Yeah, their
life. It
life.
marks
Yeah.
the occasion. But like you said, the fact that's it's a given with our human companions, but it's considered less than
you
with
just
our
go
animal.
on. You just
Yeah,
you
and
don't go
I
on.
was telling people this was as big of a deal to me as losing any family member would have been, and I don't think people really understood that. Like they thought like a text like "How are you doing?" was okay, and I'm like, if it was a human, I would have gotten cards and flowers and like nothing on the horse, and it's just fascinating to me that we do treat it so differently. We treat both like, yes, we're willing to euthanize them, that's different, and then we don't always celebrate or have
celebrate
people
them.
show up, and they're family members too. A lot of us who don't have children, they are our children. Like
Exactly.
to me, Lindsay, I called her mom, and she was also like my kid. So we had this like mother-daughter thing going, and I saw her like every day of my life. So why would that not be a significant
Absolutely.
No, it
relationship?
should be.
Right.
It
yeah.
should be.
Talking about celebrations, though, I know, Lisa, do you have that thing you were showing earlier? This is the most beautiful, incredible gift.
This was made by my friend Stacy Whittle, who
I know Stacey.
knew my sweet little miss, and all of my family and friends knew her. And she had taken her tail
Yeah.
and just
Lift it up just a tiny bit high. I just want to make sure we can see it.
And
Yeah.
so this hangs over
Beautiful.
my bed.
Yeah.
Over your bed.
Yes.
Okay.
But I do have an altar in my apartment that has her pictures and candles, and every night I light a candle for her. And when I wake up at night, with just that flickering of the light makes me think of her. So I
Okay.
feel like she's there.
She's always
so
there.
she's got her halter and her bridle and hanging there. But this is So this was a gift from my friend.
That's clearly a friend that understood the
Oh
impact.
yeah, Stacey for sure.
Totally, and
Yeah,
she also I made she makes hair bracelets, and so I carry Miss with
beautiful.
me in various ways. But yeah,
Well,
so
you know what? We are really coming
Yeah, you
down
were
to
coming
a
in.
time.
There's so much to talk about.
Yes.
But so post memorials and what has life been like, and how are you getting through this last year? And how have they been with you?
Yeah, it's a
How are they
journey.
still?
I think one of the things, it's actually been so helpful to have Lisa to share this with, because no one else can get it
She
like the way.
understands.
And if it's like she's going through a moment where it's like it's just really hard today, or I am, we have each other and we get it. We're both like, we're horse obsessed kids, horse obsessed horse moms, so we get it.
So
And
if
that's been
other
helpful.
people out there are listening and they're going through the same thing, would you suggest that how would you suggest they get help if they don't don't have somebody they can talk to about it.
I think the pet loss counselors that are out there are incredible. You know, any grief counselor, any
Can you
therapist.
share some names? Because I know you wanted to share the name of your animal communicator.
Yes, Sue Hopple is her name.
And that's also super helpful. I've had many animal communication sessions after both of my horses have left, and it's been so helpful just to hear, like, they're doing fine, they're checking in.
I bet.
And then
would
I
need
ask for
that.
signs. I always tell people, ask for signs, watch for signs, you know, journal, have a meditation process. My friends get messages for me in meditation from Lindsay, and they share it, which has also been a beautiful support. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the love doesn't die, as you were saying earlier. And so it is, even if we don't have necessarily like the best friend human support there, we can stay in connection with that being in all the different ways, and just set an intention to stay in communication.
Now, are
and
you
have them
still
around.
are you still working
Yes.
as an equine therapist too?
I
So
had to
you've-
take 2 months
Colorado.
off. I
Yes.
did. Yeah, I moved to Colorado. I still come back to Los Angeles to see clients, but I had to take a couple of months off when this happened. I just couldn't work.
No, it's understandable.
And then I got ready, and you know, my mom believed that she would come back into my work, and she is. There's a bird every single time I do a coaching session, and there are times I will literally be working with a client and all of a sudden feel whoosh, this huge energy next to me, and I know it's Lindsay. So she is still feels. I feel most connected to her when I'm working, and so that's why I always want to work.
Yeah, she's
Which is
telling you,
great.
she's
Yeah.
speaking to you
She's
that
with
you
me.
need to keep
And
working.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how about you, Lisa? Are you still?
Yes, you know, it's grief. I've never known grief to this degree.
Yeah.
I've lost
been
all my
really tough.
grandparents, and I was close to them, but nothing is like this. I mean, she was with me since I was 13, so it's huge. I set up a memorial at her corral, and the neighbors would, you know, come by, and I left a book for them to share a memory, and so that
lovely.
was really sweet.
Beautiful.
And flowers. But I also went to a pet loss support group a few times. That Katie came to me with me one time, and that was really helpful. But luckily, I had, you know, my mom and some really dear friends and who really understood, because they were going through it too with me, because Miss touched so many lives like Lindsay did. And but Miss has shown signs, you know, like it's almost like she's like, Lisa, I'm right here, you know, like, you know, I'll be like this. And
Sometimes it takes a second for you to realize.
yeah,
that.
you know, she's really adamant, you know, about
Good.
like, I didn't go anywhere. I'm right here, you know,
Yeah.
just feel me.
It's just,
Yes.
the thing we were talking about earlier is that we just can't touch them.
Yes,
We can't smell
exactly.
them.
Oh,
My smell is such an important thing for me in my life. And
Yes.
my animals and my kids. And
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Yes.
that's the part you miss the most.
But you feel them. I swear, my mother's with me all the time now.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel her like whispering in my ear. I feel her presence.
She
No, but
is.
just really, I feel more
Yes.
sort of, like you said, like, you know, talking to me. I
Yes.
hear her voice all the
Yes.
time
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
Guiding me,
Yes.
encouraging me.
Yes.
Yes, I lost my father when I was 20, and he's with me constant.
Yeah.
See, that's
he's
what's neat
Been
is
there for all the
sometimes-
milestones.
That's the thing. Sometimes these relationships can actually get better post mortem, post death,
just
because
different.
they are very
Yes.
different, right? But that connection is
can
still
get-
there.
yeah.
The saddest thing for me is when people fully believe that they're gone and it's done, and they have no more connection. And I'm like, no, the connection can be so beautiful and incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that is
Just
a beautiful note to
yeah,
leave it on.
We have to wrap it up.
Yes.
But let our listeners know how they can reach out to
Yeah.
you, because you still, and Lisa, you still have a business that I work
just
for.
give your
so how people,
websites.
websites.
Mine is just stateoftheheartfitness.com, not state of the art, but stateoftheheartfitness.com.
Wonderful.
And mine is consciousrockstar.com. And you can also
Love
find
that.
all my fun horsey selfies, which is self-love through the love of the horse, on horseyselfie.com. And that's my Instagram as well. And Equine Rockstars is the equine coaching piece of the
Fabulous. Well, thank you,
Thank you
so
so
much
much,
for
you
coming
guys.
back and sharing your
Yes.
stories and yeah, it's just beautiful. People need to hear this. They
Well,
need to-
yes, they do. And the one thing I want to say, and I know we both have books, and
Yeah.
I have a trilogy coming out of our whole life, The Ride of Our Life, and the first one
right.
hopefully is coming out the beginning of January, maybe.
Beautiful.
So, and
It's very
Wonderful.
therapeutic to
Yes.
be writing that.
Yes.
Very,
That's another
the
thing I
next
suggest.
stage.
Write if you're
Yeah.
grieving.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
one of the best. I could not have gotten through the grief over Felice
No,
without
I know.
writing, and that book will
Wonderful.
come out. Same with
Yay.
the book for
Well, then
Lindsay.
that's a show.
Beautiful.
You guys are back here
When
for
our
that.
books are out.
Yes. Thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
so good to see you coming out here from
Yes.
Colorado. And we thank
Yes.
you for joining us today. We look forward to
Absolutely.
seeing
We will see
everybody
you next week. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.